It means the ministry's interfering at Hogwarts.
You're not going mad. You're just as sane as I am.
I must not tell lies.
You seem to be laboring under the delusion that I'm going to, what was the phrase? Come quietly.
Hey everyone, welcome to Hogwarts, a podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Hogwarts, a podcast. We are discussing Chapter 16, In the Hog's Head. And I am very excited, so excited, to have Anna back with us.
Thanks. Hi, everyone.
It's been a minute. You've been traveling all over the globe.
That's been amazing.
I've been mildly, somewhat, extremely jealous.
Aww.
We have you for a great chapter. And here's where I told you in our prep for this episode that I'm going to, not really curveball, but I'm going to tell you something about this chapter. This is maybe one of my all-time favorite Harry Potter chapters.
I can respect that.
And it's a chapter that I used to get into this habit of when I read a Harry Potter book, and I would go back and read certain sections, and I'd only read certain chapters over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm. I do that.
And In the Hog's Head is one of those chapters that I kept going back to, and I think it's because I feel this is my favorite book in the series because I feel a connection to Harry in this. I understand. I know I've been very critical of Harry in a lot of different points in this book.
You call him stupid a lot. I don't like it.
In the last chapter alone, in chapter 15, I was like, can you not shut your mouth just one time? You know they're trying to antagonize you. That being said, I do understand his angst. I do understand his feeling of everyone is against him, and everyone is, you're putting that spotlight in such a negative tone, and everybody starts staring at you when you're in the Great Hall, and everybody's, that paranoia starts. I understand that because I was once an awkward teen walking into a lunchroom, and even though no one was looking at me, let's be real about it, people are looking at him. Yeah. So, I understand the feeling.
He even has a line in this chapter about feeling like he's the freak on display. Yeah. And I think everybody can at some point in their life have a moment where they can relate to. He does explain his angst a lot in this chapter.
I think a lot of people forget that, especially on rereads, is they forget what it was to be a teenager at 15. In this chapter, I feel like it's a level of vindication, almost a little bit, and it's a level of him getting the spotlight in a positive way for once. And we can kind of break into that because obviously there's a big meeting that takes place in this chapter at the Hog's Head in Hogsmeade, and we will dive into all of it because there's a lot there. But that's kind of my background with this chapter, and I actually love it a lot. So we start off with things going very, very well. Harry's finished his detentions with Umbridge. Ron is not getting yelled at as much during Quidditch practice. All three of our trio are starting to vanish their mice quite well.
Hermione's upgraded to kittens. Meow.
How do you feel about vanishing spells? Where do they go? Do they just disappear forever? Do they go to an alternate dimension?
Okay, I feel like this is actually one of my favorite moments in the movies because I feel like there's a moment where Maggie Smith is literally trying to explain where vanished objects go, and I would love to be in that class to understand that. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of creepy.
It's a little weird. And then especially when you're sending parts of those things, when they're not getting it just yet. And then they're sending do
they bring them back after they vanish them?
I have no idea.
I know.
And you're talking about actual animals. You're not just talking about a
maybe
quill.
It's like the Prestige. Maybe there's some hill somewhere where all of the kittens and all of the mice that they have vanished just go to be with Hugh Jackman's top hats.
Yep, let's do that. Let's take that, and Hugh Jackman's part of the Harry Potter multiverse. I like it.
I'm down.
So we do get, obviously, one of the big bombshells at the end of last chapter is Hermione posing the question, would Harry be interested in teaching Defense Against the Dark Arts classes? And Harry admits to himself, like, actually, I've kind of been starting to plan these lessons out as I've thought about, like, what it has taken for me to get through some of these events. And then Hermione just lets, a casual little name drop. I go like, Victor always said you were better at some things than him, even though he was in his last year at Durmstrang.
What did Vicky say?
Yeah. Ron has a very specific reaction to her name drop.
Oh God, I love Ron Weasley so much.
It's he gets very like snarky and snippy, like out of nowhere.
Nowhere.
Well, he goes from
quote, unquote.
He goes from 0 to 100 real quick.
I mean, that is Ron Weasley when it comes to Hermione Granger.
It's fair. He's just like, I'm enjoying this guy. Wait, what?
Aside from the whole Ron and Hermione of it all, which I do love, I do think it was actually really smart of Hermione to, which I don't think she was purposely doing this, but it's a good kind of outside example for Harry to hear, because it's somebody Harry likes, somebody Harry respects. Mm-hmm. So for Harry to hear that, I feel like it is a good extra little nudge. Like you said, he's already considering it, but I feel like it's a smart extra little nudge to make him feel more comfortable with the idea of him being this teacher.
And I think we've talked about in Goblet of Fire how all of the Triwizard Champions kind of ended up forming, if not a friendship, at least a level of common respect amongst all 4 of them, Harry included. And I think that's very... obviously, Fleur developed it more post-Task 2 when the sister was saved. Cedric and Krum specifically had more personal interactions with Harry that were like, you're actually pretty good. Like, Diggory obviously knows a lot more about Harry having been at school with him, but Krum, I always go back to that moment in the by the edge of the forest where he's like, you're actually a pretty good flyer.
Yeah.
And how cool that
really
is.
Liked that.
I loved it. But that's a moment of, I think each one of them had their moment of like, should you be in here? Maybe, maybe not, but I think you've earned your spot. I think
there's not very many 14-year-olds who I think would have been able to actually do what Harry did in the Triwizard Tournament.
Well, and I know you are all about giving Harry his props when they're due. Not only did he get through the tournament, the first task of the tournament is the one that he did the most on his own. I know Moody kind of like, or Crouch Jr. nudged him in the direction of like, you're good at flying, right? You can fly. And that's fine. But he still did it on his own. Like the actual accomplishment is of his own.
Yeah.
And that was the first one.
Yeah.
That's right out the gate. So I think that impressed a lot of people and went like, oh, you're capable.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We see you, Harry Potter. All right.
He's special.
He's a very special boy. But yeah, it's cool to get a Victor Krum A mention, but B a complimentary kind of thing.
I'm glad they're still pen pals.
Yes, pen pals.
Okay, Ron.
They have this plan of going to a location in Hogsmeade that's private to have this meeting. So Hermione has designated the Hogshead Pub as the location for this meeting. And can we just start off with the fact that they describe the sign in detail, where it's a severed hog's head on a cloth and there's blood pouring onto the cloth, which, for reference, if you're reading the book along with us, that's the illustration at the beginning of the chapter. And you can see the blood outlines on the background of it. It's interesting. I would like to just state that our trip to the Hogshead Pub in the Wizarding World, it was a wonderfully clean environment.
Yes, it was.
It had wonderful drinks. It had wonderful food.
Lovely bartender.
Yeah. who I won't say the circumstances of my visit,
I
which
forgot about that.
Anna is just now remembering. She was a lovely bartender who I'm very thankful for. I will say this, though, seriously, about the Wizarding World Hogshead. Behind the bar, they have an actual Hogshead plaque that moves.
Minus blood.
Minus blood, but it's still a really cool
It is
looking
very cool.
piece.
Moves, like you said. Yeah. And don't forget the secret menu.
Secret menu is that's what we ordered off of, too, right?
And you did.
Yeah.
I got one of the park specific beers.
Oh, okay. It was good. I liked all of the secret menu stuff there.
Honestly, I enjoyed everything we drank there.
That's true. It was a good trip.
It was good.
Anyway, this Hogshead in the chapter, not as clean and friendly.
No.
I think I put in my notes, I would not describe this bar as clean.
No. I don't think anybody there would describe it as clean.
It's described as Harry thought it was an earthen floor until he realized it was just years upon years of filth that has accumulated on the floor.
The bartender's actually cleaning glasses with the dirty rag and further dirtying the glass.
Flitwick is mentioned to have recommended they bring their own glasses for the pub.
Like, why does anyone go here?
Well, we get some interesting clientele.
We do. That's true. Fair enough.
We get a man covered in bandages.
Yeah. Gray bandages.
Yeah, odd.
Sounded a little gross, yeah.
Definitely odd. And then we get a witch in an all black veil as they enter, which just the clientele alone.
Well, and then there were the two people talking to each other with the Yorkshire accents, but that was the only reason Harry didn't think they were Dementors, because they had the cloaks.
Oh, they were cloaked in the corner, just on the clientele alone, I'd be like, this is an odd place. This is a little weird. But, whatever. Hermione chose it, so it must be good, right?
She made sure to find out they're allowed to go there, so,
I'm sure the barman was like, I'm sorry, there are kids here? Why? And then Ron goes like, I bet you that barman would give me a fire whiskey.
You are a prefect.
Fine. I guess.
Oh my god, I just love Ron and Hermione.
So, Hermione, how many people did you exactly invite to this thing? Quote, just a couple of people. Just a couple.
When I did the full count, and you did it too for your... It's a lot more people than I think I really realized. Yeah.
Including the trio.
Yeah.
28.
Yeah. Like, that's definitely...
It's like a full class size.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
I will do this rundown.
Surprised they had enough butterbeer for them all.
Right? Also, it seems like those glasses have been there for a while. No one's ordering butterbeer at this particular establishment. No. But anyway. I will run down this list very quickly because it is a hefty list. We got Neville, Dean, Lavender, Parvati, and Padma. We get Cho with her friend, who's unnamed at this point. We get Luna, Katie Bell, Alicia Spinett, Angelina Johnson. That Katie, Alicia, and Angelina are all Quidditch members. We get Dennis and Colin Creevy.
Yes.
We get Ernie McMillan, Justin Finch-Fletchley, Hannah Abbott, an unknown Hufflepuff girl that we later find out is Susan Bones. Yes. So there's your Hufflepuff crew. We get the Ravenclaw crew of Anthony Goldstein, Terry Boot, Michael Corner, which I know Cho and Luna are both Ravenclaws too. Yes, yeah. And Cho's friend is Ravenclaw. But we'll set those apart from the Ravenclaw crew. And so we get Ginny, Fred, George, and Lee Jordan. And I'm saving this one for last purely only because Anna has a whole thing on this character, so I'm going to let her go in a second. But we get Hufflepuff Quidditch player, who's literally named Hufflepuff Quidditch player until I forget who. I forget if it's Ron. Or one of the,
who are you?
Who are you? And that who are you is Zachariah Smith. Anna, what are your opinions on Zachariah Smith?
Well, okay. I feel like you're thinking it's going to be super funny, but Previously, I probably would have been really funny because I always thought Zacharias Smith was just a huge jerk and there for total comedic relief. But as has been happening to a lot of us as we've been rereading for this podcast, as I was reading this whole interaction primarily between Ron, Harry, and Zacharias, I read it completely different than normal. And I was definitely a lot more sympathetic towards him this time around. Like, normally I'm like, oh my gosh, what a jerk. Look at George pulling out this thing that they're gonna not be picky about where they stick. Oh, this is so funny. But I was thinking about it, thought about it from a different angle this time. And literally, when you were just describing, as he was walked in, he was described as somebody Harry vaguely recognized as being from the Hufflepuff Quidditch team, who was captain of the Hufflepuff Quidditch team, Cedric Diggory.
Mm-hmm.
What is the one thing that he seems really determined to find out details from Harry about was how Cedric died. The details of what exactly happened to Cedric. And yeah, as you're reading it, you're totally right there with Harry. And like, I don't blame Harry for not wanting to talk about it. And it does really seem really macabre that like, why does this boy want the details of how Cedric died and how Cedric was murdered? And he just seems like, this gossip hungry, wanting the details of this traumatic experience for Harry. And so like, obviously teenage read through, you're right there with the Weasleys and defending Harry. But like, what if this is just like him trying to process his grief? Like, it's this unexpected death of his Quidditch captain who we all like. You were Cedric's #1 fan. I think we all probably figure Cedric probably gave him a lot of time. Maybe somebody that Zacharias Smith looked up to, was friends with, Quidditch camaraderie. Maybe he's just trying to like, one way to deal with an unexpected death is try to find out exactly the details. So maybe you can answer the how.
Closure.
Right. And yeah, a lot of times it doesn't actually end up happening, but it's something that people think will help. So maybe he's just literally trying to find out from Harry the how, so maybe he can think he'll understand and move on. Like, it kind of makes me wish for him that he could have maybe had a one-on-one conversation with Harry. Again, I don't blame Harry for not wanting to go into the details of his awful trauma, because I've been all about, like, Harry's dealing with some trauma. But, like, I wish him, maybe we would, like, everybody would feel differently about Zacharias. I mean, like, the only reason he was invited was because he basically invited himself when he overheard Hermione. Maybe that's been his goal all along.
I have two thoughts. One, I was highly amused when you...
I know, I presented it like it was going to be really funny.
No. It's just, that's not even what the funny part is. It's just, you... When I reached out to Anna for this chapter, and she read it, and she gets back to me with, I have thoughts on Zacharias Smith. I was just amused there, period. Why? Because I would expect nothing less from Anna.
Thanks, Dan.
To come at me with let's be real about it, not even a tertiary character in this lineup, a fairly fringe character in this lineup. And Anna's bringing thoughts on it. And I'm like, I love that. I just love it to begin with. So that's why I'm amused. Number two, what may surprise some of our listeners who frequent the podcast, I actually quite agree with you, 100%. I think it's a really astute observation that you're making in kind of the breakdown of what Zacharias's goal actually is. I think you're right on. I think he probably had a very close relationship with Cedric. I mean, even if he wasn't on the Quidditch team specifically, he's at least in the same house. So he's had frequent interaction with. Mm. And I know I'm the Cedric #1 fan, as you called it, but Cedric's struck me as the kind of guy who, if someone was struggling with something or not, or just wanted to talk about whatever, he seems like the kind of guy that'd be like, sure, what do you want to talk about today? Kind of guy. So
Zacharias doesn't strike me as somebody who maybe has a lot of friends. I feel like maybe Cedric would have recognized that.
he's a very
He's abrasive. He's aggressive.
Abrasive is the perfect word. But to your point, is he abrasive? Or does he just come off as abrasive in this particular moment, and that's all you really get of him is this moment right now? So is he abrasive, or is he just abrasive in this one snapshot?
Again, I've read this interaction, I have no idea how many times at this point. Never have had this thought. Literally, I'm always just like laughing at him, being like, what a jerk, George, go stick that thing somewhere. But like, maybe it's just the difference between, you know, this is technically young adult fiction. Maybe it's just the difference between reading it when you're younger versus reading it as an adult that you notice more, think about these intricacies. But
I love it.
I felt a lot more for him than ever before.
I love that take. I love it because I don't know how many people have really considered that. And I think it's certainly something you have to think about in his character. And so the lead up to him being so abrasive and Harry being abrasive back, honestly. And shout out to Ron for being his wingman of being like, I'm sorry, who are you? Like,
again, which I like totally love the response of the Weasleys. Like, Zacharias just chose his moment poorly.
Yeah.
If that's what's happening.
Though, I will say this. If what you're saying is truly what's going on with Zacharias, I don't blame him for shooting his shot then.
Agreed.
Being like,
I know.
And honestly, good for him, because you would have to assume that most of the people here would be pro Harry Potter.
Yeah.
So to have the courage to shoot that shot in that moment when you are surrounded by Weasleys and you're surrounded by Hermione and Ginny and all of these people that are pro Harry, it takes some guts to throw your actual opinion out there and want to get some answers. So this is way more positive Zacharias thoughts than I ever thought we were going to get into, but I'm here for it. But he was, so why Harry ends up getting upset is because Harry's whole thing is going into this, and he had this whole spiel planned about, hey, this isn't a whole lot of me. I've had a lot of luck. I've had a lot of help, which is something we've stated on the podcast. I have stated on the podcast, but he's not wrong. And I love, and I will give Harry all the credit in the world to acknowledge that.
It's literally, he describes it as the thing he had sworn to himself he would tell them.
That's an outstandingly mature way of dealing with all of this. To acknowledge, like, yes, I have done those things, but there were a lot of people helping me get there.
Well, and I know on the podcast we all laugh a lot about how he's always described as this very special boy, but I think this is what actually makes him special. Like, how many celebrity children like this would really recognize, make a point to bring it up? Like, Harry,
the humble side of him is truly a special thing. Yeah. Zacharias is poking, and
Harry's getting mad at Hermione about it.
Of course this is what this turned into. Yeah. I'm front stage again, being asked questions that I don't feel comfortable answering, which he has the right to feel uncomfortable about answering these questions.
Agreed.
And, then you can get into, is Hermione right for kind of putting him on Front Street? Is she not? Is she like...
I firmly believe this is a really great idea of Hermione's. She's right. They do need, this is more important than owls. They need to be able to defend themselves. She firmly believes Harry. They all know what they're going to be going into in the coming years. They need this. And Harry is the person for it. It is unusual that Hermione did not foresee the fact that even the Weasleys are described as like looking at Harry waiting for, maybe expecting a little more information about what went on at the end of Goblet of Fire.
Well, they don't know everything.
Exactly.
Like, they don't know all the
people who know
details.
everything are Ron and Hermione. I almost can't blame them. Like, we're human. Like, wouldn't you be kind of interested about, like...
Oh, sure. There's a natural curiosity for sure. Yeah.
And, like, yes, you are wanting to go to learn defense and everything, but it is something that you would have thought would have been foreseen, that everybody's going to want to know what went on.
And then we get to the part that I think really gets to why I love this chapter so much. It's not Ron or Hermione that list all of his accomplishments. It's the other students. It's his peers that start listing off all of the spectacular things that he's accomplished, and that hits different. Yeah. And it, as much as you love and respect and care for Ron and Hermione, it's like you almost expect them to be in your corner.
Well, I feel like it almost puts it forth for us as the reader. Like, we're so used to, like, you know, we're reading from Harry's point of view. We're so used to him doing a Patronus at this point. Like, and I think you've spoken with, I think, Julie about, like, we don't really know what the normal level of magic is because we just get Harry's perspective. But hearing from his peers how big of a deal it is that he can do a Patronus, Lee Jordan is, like, awed. It hits different. Yeah.
It's not to say that their opinion, Ron and Hermione's opinion, doesn't matter to Harry, because obviously it does.
Of course.
But when you just hear it from a neutral party that you weren't expecting, it just hits different. Yeah. And it just like, oh, that's really good to hear. Mm. It calms you down. It makes you just generally happier, more relaxed. Mm. And then you can kind of like settle into the whole thing. But yeah, I mean, he even tries. He was like, no, I'm going to say my bit. I'm going to do it. And then he begins to say how he got a lot of help. And he was like, well, yeah, but you didn't really in the Triwizard Tournament. Like, you flew around that dragon. I mean, that was you. So
he even says, if there are like things to himself, like, be stupid to try and deny that.
I mean, it's like, well, now I'm just sounding contradictory if I like. And Susan Bones is a big part of this because with her aunt, right? Her aunt.
Her auntie.
Yes, her yeah. Amelia was in the actual hearing, so she got all of this firsthand knowledge of the events of the summer. So Susan's like, I'm sorry, you fought off multiple Dementors? Like, that's a thing that happened? And he was like, yeah. Yeah, kind of did that. Okay, all right. This is an interesting moment. I think it's that moment that kind of not validates a lot of what Harry's kind of been going through, but it kind of just is that moment of, I'm not crazy.
Well, it's got to be good for him to hear that, like, because, you know, he's been struggling with Seamus and all these people doubting him about what went on in the graveyard, and if people really believe him. It's not the first time that he's been on the outside of people's good opinion. This meeting didn't start very well with my boy Zacharias. So
are we officially referring to him as your boy now?
Apparently, yes. Done. I am gonna do that.
Done, and I love it.
But
so your Hufflepuff is Zacharias and mine is Cedric Diggory. That's what we're writing with?
I will proudly take Zacharias. Yes, you can have Cedric. I'll absolutely take Zacharias as my Hufflepuff.
I love it. Okay.
I prefer Tonks, but I'll take Zacharias
okay.
All right.
But
no, but like, so now for it to turn so suddenly and for him to get positive feedback, like you said, from people outside of his two best friends, it's got to kind of, it's like rubbing aloe vera on some burns, you know? It's gotta be for him. Maybe that, what was it, Murtlap essence he was soaking in.
So we get to the actual, the parchment that Hermione has them sign.
I love this.
And obviously, I think this is super realistic. Everybody's like gung-ho for it. Ernie Macmillan specifically, like, speaking of Hufflepuffs. You don't want to switch to Ernie Macmillan?
No.
No, you're sticking...
You
Okay,
can
that's
have
fine.
Ernie.
I never said I would. Never mind. We're not going to slander Ernie Macmillan here today. Because he actually stands up and is like, no,
This will be the most important thing we do this year. Oh my gosh.
If Hogwarts had a drama club,
Yes.
Ernie Macmillan would be right up there.
Oh, I wish Hogwarts had a drama club. That would be so fun. Anyway, sorry.
He's a lot, but to his credit, he stands up and stands with Harry and is like, no, I believe you. And he did this before too, after herbology, and was like, no, it's not only the crazy people like Luna. I also believe in you. And but he stands up and says it again. Then Hermione brings this parchment that she wants all of them to sign. And now him and others are like, ooh, I don't know if I want my name attached to this. I'm a prefect. There's a lot I have on the line. I don't know if there should be evidence. Which, by the way, for the record, he does have a point.
I was going to say, they're smart kids. Like,
They're not
actually
dumb.
a really intelligent way of looking at this.
It's a very well-reasoned approach. Yes.
Always be careful what you put in writing.
Absolutely. That being said, Fred was the first one to put his name down, followed by George.
Lee didn't hesitate either. And your boy, Zacharias, was the last one to put his name down. He wanted to find out about the meeting from Ernie. It's okay. I forgive him.
We get a little bit of Cho here in this setting. Harry is pointedly not staring at her through his entire spiel. He's like, no, I'm going to focus on all of these other people.
Oh, gosh. JK does such a good job of writing, like, teenage romance.
She really does. She does have an knack for it. Obviously, Harry's avoiding her gaze because he'll clearly fall apart. And it's adorable. But, Cho has this moment where she, like, tries to stay behind for a little bit before her friend, like, drags her out.
Yeah, we've all been there.
Just a terrible wing woman. I mean, come on.
Okay, I actually don't understand why Cho is friends with this girl, but that's like, even just from this chapter, I don't understand why Cho is friends with this girl.
We could talk a little bit more about it in the spoilers. Yeah. But I agree. I think the fandom as a whole has a certain type of opinion of Cho. And I'm like, I don't know if it's Cho or if it's this girl.
There's some of it. I mean, I've changed. I've lots of Cho opinions, and they're all over the place.
I have a Cho question for you then in the spoiler.
Okay.
That we've discussed recently on a recent episode, and I'll preface it now and say, because I'll give you time to think about it, because I'm throwing this on you like randomly now.
Okay.
What would happen? Because Harry, when they meet in the Owlery, poses this question. It's Harry himself that poses the question. How things would have been different if he had asked Cho to the Yule Ball before Cedric. So I'll let you marinate on that. We'll continue on with the chapter. Speaking of dating and teenage romance, Ron finds out that his beloved little sister is dating Michael Corner from Ravenclaw. He takes that, as far as Hermione's concerned, predictably bad.
Oh, yeah.
And he does not react well. I thought that Michael Corner looked dodgy. Hermione also notes that, going back to Cho for a second, that Cho couldn't keep her eyes off of you.
Yeah, I mean, that's sweet of Hermione. Hermione tries so hard to get these boys to, be successful romantically. My personal favorite part of all of their teenage romance discussion is when Harry has the little light bulb go on of, that's why Ginny talks now. She never used to talk in front of me. It's like, yeah, Harry, yeah.
You're just not, like, even Ron knew this. Ron knew, like, oh yeah, I thought she always fancied Harry.
Yeah.
And Harry's like, wait.
I know.
I do love the quote that ends this chapter, though, of after Hermione tells him that Cho couldn't keep her eyes off of him, she goes, quote, or sorry, he thinks, quote, never before appreciated just how beautiful the village of Hogsmeade was. Close. End scene.
He's really sweet in
very poetic almost.
His affection towards Cho. Like, I think Harry would not be a good boyfriend because he's focused on so many like big world problem things. But also when he's focused on his girlfriend, Harry would be a really good boyfriend.
Yeah, I think so. I think if he wasn't surrounded by death and destruction like every year.
Yeah.
Okay. Fair. That's fair.
Like, he's so genuine, and because I think he's not capable of hiding any of his actual feelings. So it's just sweet. I like Harry.
You like the title character of the series?
Good. My favorite series.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, I know, right? It's fortunate.
Unlike me and Hunger Games and not liking Katniss.
Oh my god, Katniss is awful.
Okay, so
sorry, we don't need to go on that tangent.
We don't need to go on that tangent, but I do want to mention, like, with your Zacharias enlightenment that you seem to have had this chapter, it almost does make me want to kind of reread the Hunger Games.
Never.
And be like, do I like or understand where Katniss is coming from more? Or do I still despise that character as a whole?
Despise her.
I would assume so, but now after reading this, I don't think I can assume it, but anyway.
We didn't read those as teenagers. We were already kind of...
That's true.
Adultish.
Anyway, we will end the non-spoiler conversation here, and we'll be right back after a Weasley is our king mention with the spoiler section of Chapter 16 in the Hog's Head. Weasley is our king! All right, so we are back with the spoiler section of Chapter 16 in the Hog's Head, and we have some stuff that we want to double back on from the non-spoiler section. I feel like you have alternative branding for the...
Oh, yes! Okay, so spoiler section. Obviously, it's Aberforth.
Yeah. We do get a comment from Harry that the barman looks vaguely familiar.
He does, which Harry's really bad at making connections to Albus. Because, like, he didn't catch his voice in the beginning.
Yep.
Now we've got Albus's brother, who looks vaguely familiar.
Tall, skinny, well-bearded, long-haired man.
I am not a proponent for calling Harry an idiot. But, like,
sometimes
in
he has
this
his moments.
particular subject matter, which obviously plot device, it's too early for us to find out this is Albus's brother.
Right.
But what I wish we would find out, like, I want a short story about where Aberforth's obsession with goats comes from. I mean, his Patronus is a goat. There's something with goats. Why is it the Hog's Head? I have ideas. The goat's horns. You know, instead of the Hog's Head, it can be the goat's horns.
Okay.
I used to own a bar called the Hog's Head if he's obsessed with goats.
Okay, so we can have a little Aberforth conversation here because it also ties into something else we kind of wanted to talk about. But Aberforth. Presumably, Aberforth is in on conversations going on.
Yes.
And part of the whole surveillance crew, I guess, of, like, maybe not specifically Harry, but just, like, let us know what you're hearing.
Well, right. I mean, like, Dung is reporting to Sirius. Albus found out about this meeting from Aberforth.
So you and I have had some tinfoil hat down the rabbit hole kind of conversations.
Yes.
Here's my tinfoil hat of how this all came to be. Because your original question to me in our break was, how does Mundungus know that Harry's going to be having a meeting, or Hermione's going to be having a meeting at the Hog's Head this time?
Right, because Dung is already there under his veil when they arrive.
Correct. Yeah, just very briefly. Mundungus is constantly vigilant of Harry.
Yeah. Okay.
As the veiled witch in the black. The other one is the Umbridge informant. So the tinfoil hat theory I have with Mundungus somehow knowing that this meeting was taking place in the Hogshead. You ready for this?
Yes.
Hermione asks Flitwick about can students go to the Hogshead?
Yeah.
And I don't know how, this is where I guess it's conspiracy theory tinfoil hat, is I don't know how involved Flitwick is in the Order.
He's a member.
Or
Because
the
isn't he
Order.
one of the ones that they kind of briefly viewed over the summer, going in and out of the house?
I thought it was just McGonagall and Snape. Maybe it was Flitwick. I don't know how involved he is in the Order, but if he's in the Order full on at this point, obviously he is later, but at this point in the proceedings, I would assume he is.
I think
right?
he is, yeah.
I think they feel safe and confident enough in
Filius
Flitwick.
is
Legit.
an ally. Yeah.
So I think Hermione tells Flitwick, like, hey, is it cool if students go to the Hogshead? And Flitwick's not an idiot. And pieces together, like, hey, there might be something going on at the Hogshead.
Okay.
And Albus tells Aberforth, and, well, Aberforth, I don't know, do we believe that Mundungus is officially banned by Aberforth?
I mean, he must be. So maybe Aberforth is not pulled into the loop.
Or
I think Dung is just sent.
Maybe. So then, does Albus tell Sirius, like, hey, your godson is about to have a meeting at the Hogshead, and then Sirius tells Mundungus?
Yes.
To go and scout
Well,
out
no,
the Hogshead?
I think Albus tells Mundungus. Because I don't think...
So Aberforth, you're just believing, is completely kept out of the loop.
Yeah. Until, like, I feel like he would be brought into the loop. Because why, if Aberforth is brought into the loop beforehand, why would they also need to send Dung?
Well, here's the other issue is, this is digging more into the spoilery nature of this conversation, but Aberforth isn't exactly a team player.
Yeah.
I
I don't know that Albus would trust Aberforth to give him all of the details after the fact.
He can be described as cantankerous at best.
I don't know. That's why I like him.
He's a little ornery with Dumbledore, naturally, for reasons.
Well, and Dung hasn't exactly proven himself the best either.
Right.
So maybe Dumbledore's Albus is just kind of, like, maybe if I put both of them there, I'll get the whole story between
That's
the two
fair.
of them.
That could very easily be it. Dumbledore's hedging his bets. He's like, one of them's going to tell me the truth somewhere.
Or I'll be able to parse the truth together from both of their half-truths.
Aberforth is one of those people that does not have any problems
He does
telling
not care.
Albus Dumbledore what he thinks. So take that for what it's worth. But that's my little rabbit hole. Hermione to Flitwick to Albus to whichever one you want to know.
See it. It makes more sense than anything else I can come up with.
Yeah. Let us know what you think about how that happened and Mundungus just magically appeared at.
What a rat, Filius Flitwick. Ratting out the trio.
But for good? Not the greater good, but good. Yeah.
Then how does Umbridge find out to send Willie Wittershins? Or did Willie Wittershins just happen to be there and offer it up to Dolores?
Pure happenstance. Like just random chance.
I feel like it is. I feel like it might be pure happenstance.
Maybe
it was Dolores who did something to poor old Willie, and that's why he's covered in bandages. And he decided to just go to her so he wouldn't be hurt by her anymore.
Or what if he just happened to be at the Hogshead drinking, overheard this, knew he was in trouble.
That's what I mean.
And went to
I think he already
Umbridge.
knew he was in trouble. I think she's the reason he's all bandaged up and he was in trouble. So he's trying to hedge his bets after he overheard this and went back to her.
Yeah, I think it might be he just happened to be there.
He's an opportunist.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's the actual answer.
He's the rat.
You know who is a rat? Oh, how about this for a trend? Cho's friend.
Oh, no, she's not a rat. She's a sneak.
We got some certain vibes from Cho's friend in this chapter. None of them pleasant. She did not want to be there, clearly.
Clearly.
And Cho dragged her to this. I don't know why.
Because Cho is one of those girls who's incapable of doing something on her own. And I say that as a person who has come a long way in my views of Cho. I still don't. She's never going to be my favorite person. But I don't think that Cho is capable of going to something like this by herself.
Well, okay. I will defend her a little bit on this. It doesn't even have to be female. It could be male too. Sometimes you walk into an unfamiliar environment with unfamiliar people in a stressful situation.
But these aren't unfamiliar people.
Well,
it's a stressful situation, I will give you.
Well, that's the other part that I have to this. But to finish that thought is like, you feel more comfortable in said situation. Like, even if you're going to a party and you knew like 50% of the people at the party, but you didn't know like the other 50%, you feel more comfortable going with someone you know.
Do you really think Marietta made her feel more comfortable in the situation with how clearly Marietta was against being there?
I don't know the social hierarchy of the Ravenclaw common room.
I don't know. I think Cho's queen bee myself. But...
maybe. Well, but that goes to what you were leading into was, does she know Terry Boot, Anthony Goldstein? How comfortable is she with Luna? Probably not very.
No, she wouldn't be comfortable with Luna, but...
like, how does she... Anthony Goldstein's a prefect.
Yes.
So, like, that would indicate that he's
they're all the year younger than her, too.
He's got to be a pretty high standing to be a prefect, you'd assume.
Just because was Percy Weasley high standing? I don't think prefect automatically means you're... super cool.
I would assume you'd give that to someone you think can lead.
Somebody who can lead, but just because you can lead doesn't mean you're popular.
Now we're getting into the definition of a leader.
I mean, that's like saying everybody who is ever like in any sort of authoritative position in high school was well respected for it. Like, I mean, I don't know about Anthony. I'm not trying to like knock Anthony Goldstein. He very well could be. I'm just saying.
I don't know what relationship Cho has with the other Ravenclaws per se. Yeah. And I don't know what their interactions are because we really don't have any information on that Ravenclaw social circle. Mm-hmm. But I do understand wanting to bring who you consider a friend to an event that you might feel uncomfortable at.
I can too. I think my question about Marietta ended up being like, okay, so she comes to the initial meeting with Cho. And at that point, Cho maybe isn't as familiar with everybody, as comfortable with everybody. But as the DA progresses, and you really see that example of inter-house unity, and in my mind, I imagine all of the DA becoming pretty close, as they go through the year. Why does Marietta keep coming? You know what I mean? Like, she clearly never wanted to go to begin with. Just because you signed this paper, it wasn't a promise to continue to come. It was just a promise that you're not going to, like, shout about what the club is doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I guess I just never... I mean, obviously, it's also a plot device. Somebody needed to be the sneak. Umbridge eventually needed to find out. But I just, like, I don't get Marietta Edgecombe. And I don't get Cho Chang a lot of times either. But
well, and that brings to the larger question of, like, what I asked at the beginning of Cho gets a lot of interesting reactions from the fandom.
Yeah.
Doesn't her friend deserve a little bit more aggression? No, not even a little bit.
I'm sorry. Her friend deserves more aggression than the aggression showed to Cho.
That's all I'm saying.
But Cho deserves some aggression. I'm a lot more sympathetic to Cho nowadays than I ever was previously. Like, girlfriend's got a lot going on, and I could talk about that more in depth now or in future episodes as their time together progresses. Not going to call it a relationship. Even before, so your question for me was going to be, what was it what do I think would be different if Harry had asked her before Cedric.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Cho was ever the girl that Harry Potter was going to fall in love with. There's enough about her. She's strong. She's good at Quidditch. There's enough about her that I understand Harry's attraction to her, and it makes me like Harry that he's attracted to, a strong woman like Cho. But Cho's not as strong. Like, once you get to know Cho more, I don't think she is the girl that Harry was going to be with long term.
I could see that. But I guess where I start asking the question from is if Cho is more emotionally attached to Harry through book 4. She doesn't have that necessarily emotional attachment to Cedric.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, some of their dates through book 5 that we witness don't go that poorly necessarily.
You could also say, I would presume, and maybe this is just me, but I would presume Cho's determination to join the DA and get more involved in some of the things that go on with the struggle against Umbridge come from her desire to fight after Cedric being killed and being murdered. If she doesn't have that motivation, because, yes, she would be affected by Cedric dying, but it's not, obviously, like you said, she's not going to be crying and as emotionally distraught as she is through this book if she hadn't started dating and had those feelings for Cedric.
So then, you're saying that
yes,
those...
the dates don't, involve her, their first kiss isn't her, crying as she kisses Harry. But, also, what else is there between, what else do Harry and Cho ever talk about other than Quidditch and Cedric?
But they talk about the weather, Anna. They talk about the weather.
But that's what I mean. If this is Harry at 15, if this started when he was 14, do they get past the first date even without Cho being an emotional wreck? I don't think
It's
Harry
fair.
was ready for Cho. I just don't.
Well, no, I do agree with you on that, because their interactions so far seem like, Harry, well, it's nice weather. And then Cho's like, so that's good for Quidditch. Go on. What else you got?
I don't blame Harry. I don't think
No,
any of us were.
I don't blame you. No. Oh, goodness.
I know
No.
was not great
No,
at 15.
I'm just teasing and making fun. But yeah, of course. I don't blame Harry at all for being a little this really pretty girl that you like is talking to you. I'm blank. My mind has gone blank. I fully understand where Harry is coming from. But it's just nice to poke at him.
No, for sure. And I don't know if I really answered your question, but I
think things would be different. I agree with you that I'm not saying it's a long-lasting, forever relationship.
I think you're right.
Things would be different.
Yeah, of course.
All right. So we will end the conversation here with all of the ship talk.
What's Harry and Cho's ship name? I don't know.
The first thing that popped in my head was Cherry. And I'm like, that's not right. That's not good.
I can't think of anything else.
Chatter?
Chatter! Yes! There
Boom.
it is. There it is. All right. I knew we'd get there.
We're going with Chatter. Which is apropos, considering they can't talk to each other.
Exactly. It's perfect.
So we will end it right here for another episode of Hogwarts a Podcast. We hope you've enjoyed listening to Anna and I talk about all sorts of things.
#chatter.
#chatter. Ridiculous. Molly will like it, though. I think Molly will be a fan.
It's always the goal.
And we will be back next week with Chapter 17, Educational Decree number 24.
Woo!
So please leave a like, comment, repost, share this podcast wherever you can. Help this podcast grow. We do have a support the podcast link wherever you're finding this podcast to donate financially to the podcast. It's a lot of work to do these things. So it really helps us kind of keep this thing going. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Hogwarts, a podcast. If you like what you've heard, please click the subscribe button on your preferred podcasting app and follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Hogwarts a Pod.